After years of paying all expenses, while my parents and siblings lived rent-free in my house, they booked a family trip using my card and assumed I'd stayed behind to handle everything. As always, I used to think being useful was the same thing as being loved. My mother Margaret believed that neatness meant virtue. My father Charles believed that silence meant respect. Between them, I learned how to disappear in plain sight. When I was 8, the kitchen faucet started leaking steady as a metronome. My father cursed, grabbed his keys, and left for a drive. My mother sighed dramatically, then looked at me. "William, be a dear and fix it, will you? You're good with your hands." I did. I twisted the handle tight, wrapped the pipe with tape until the noise stopped. She smiled, kissed the top of my head, and said the words that would chain me for years. "What would we do without you?" At 10, I carried grocery bags heavier than my arms. At 12, I learned to balance a checkbook before I understood algebra. By 16, I was working evenings at a hardware store handing my paycheck to my father so he could cover some bills. He never gave it back. I told myself that was normal. Men helped the family. Christmases always told the truth faster than anyone else. When Rebecca, my younger sister, turned 15, she got an expensive art set with a bow on top. Matthew, our youngest, got a new bike. I got a stack of lined notebooks and a pen set. "Because you're so organized," Mom said, smiling like she'd done something thoughtful. I smiled too. Because what else could I do? At 19, when I got accepted to college out of state, Dad sat me down. "Don't get ideas, son. Family comes first. You'll help us when we need it." I nodded, thinking that was love talking. It wasn't. It was a contract I didn't know I'd signed. Years later, when the pandemic hit, I co-founded a small paper manufacturing company with my college friend Daniel Morris. We worked in an empty warehouse that smelled like cardboard and burnt coffee. People laughed about toilet paper shortages while I hauled pallets and answered emails until sunrise. For the first time in my life, hard work actually paid off. When we finally sold the company, I didn't buy a sports car or move to the city. I bought a modest 2-story house in a quiet suburb outside Seattle. A yard big enough for summer barbecues. A porch light that actually worked. I wanted a piece, something I'd never had growing up. The night I got the keys, I took my parents out to dinner. Margaret ordered wine she couldn't pronounce. Charles bragged to the waiter, "My boy built a business from scratch." Rebecca filmed the bread basket for her story, and Matthew asked how many bedrooms the house had. When I said 3 plus an office, the table went still for a heartbeat. Then my mother smiled, her tone syrupy and sharp. "So much space, darling. You'll never be lonely." 2 months later, my father's company downsized. He called it temporary. Then Mom's school hours were cut. Rebecca's landlord raised rent. Matthew's truck got repossessed. The calls came one by one. Soft at first. Just a few nights on the couch, just until the end of the month. "You won't even notice us." I told myself it was fine. Family needed me. I had space savings time. What harm could it do? The first week felt almost good. Taco nights, movie marathons, my mother humming as she cooked in my kitchen. She kissed my cheek and said, "We're so lucky you're steady, William. You're our rock." Those words warmed me and strangled me at the same time. Then boxes multiplied in corners. The living room filled with my father's temporary files. My office became Rebecca's art studio. Matthew installed a weight bench in the dining room, and I kept telling myself it was okay. That love looked like sacrifice. I didn't know it then, but every "just this once" was another quiet eviction from my space, my time, my peace. By the 3rd month, my house no longer sounded like mine. The mornings began with Margaret's blender screaming at 6 a.m., followed by Charles coughing in the hallway because he refused to quit smoking in his own home. Only it wasn't his. Rebecca played lo-fi music while she painted in my office, and Matthew lifted weights so loudly the windows rattled. The peace I'd bought with years of work evaporated under their noise. When I brought it up gently, Mom put her hand over mine and smiled like she was soothing a child. "It's just a phase, darling. Be patient with us. You're good at that." And I was too good. One night I found my Amex statement open on the counter, still warm from someone's hands. My balance had doubled. Groceries, Uber rides, and order from a luxury cookware store. The shipping address was mine. "Mom, I said, holding the paper up. She didn't even look it away from the TV. It's for the house, William. Don't fuss. You can write it off. I can't write off your pots, I said. She laughed softly. Everything I do is for this family. You're so dramatic. I went to bed that night with a pulse in my jaw. I stared at the ceiling fan and wondered if maybe I was the problem. Too strict, too selfish. That's the trick of manipulation. It makes you doubt your own reason. By summer, I'd become the family accountant, handyman, and unpaid chauffeur. Rebecca borrowed my car for inspiration trips and returned it with paint on the seatbelt. Matthew borrowed my truck for work stuff and backed it into a pole, promising he'd fix it. He didn't. One evening, I came home to find a package on the porch. The label read The Parker Family. Inside were matching silk robes embroidered with initials MCRM, but not W. I stood there on the porch until the sun went down, robe fabric cold between my fingers. I laughed once. It didn't sound right. Thanksgiving came with its usual script. Margaret orchestrating every detail, Rebecca taking photos, Charles telling old stories like he was auditioning for sainthood. During dinner, Mom raised her glass to William, who makes all this possible. Everyone clapped. I smiled because that's what they expected. But in my head, the words twisted to family funding. December arrived with frost on the windows and a message on my phone. Rebecca Paris flights are on sale. We deserve something special this year. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. The next day, Margaret floated into the kitchen humming a Christmas song. Your sister's booking the tickets. Oh, don't worry, dear. She's using the family card. The family card? I repeated. She blinked at me, wide-eyed, innocent as poison. You know the one under your name. We'll pay you back. You always get miles anyway. I didn't fight it. I moved money around, told myself not to ruin Christmas. Maybe it would bring them joy. Maybe it would be worth it. When they left that year, I drove them to the airport. The car was packed with luggage matching Scarve's laughter. As they unloaded, Rebecca turned back and said, You hate long flights anyway. We'll bring you something nice. Then she disappeared into the sliding doors. I watched the automatic glass close, sealing me outside my own family. Snow started falling soft and soundless. I drove home through a white blur, parked, and sat in the quiet car until my breath fogged the window. Inside the house, the tree lights blinked for no one. I told myself I didn't care, that it was just a trip, that next year would be different. When they came back, the house filled with voices and the smell of airport perfume. They gave me a miniature Eiffel Tower keychain, the tag still attached, and a receipt from duty-free taped to it. Mom kissed my cheek. Thank you for handling everything while we were gone. You're such a good son. That night I put the keychain in a drawer and stared at my reflection in the dark window. My face looked calm, but something behind my eyes had started to crack. I didn't know it then, but that was the last year I'd let them leave me behind. The next time they packed their bags for Paris, I'd be the one moving something out, just not myself. The second year after they moved in, my house became a test I kept failing. Every day felt like walking through someone else's life, one where I paid every bill but didn't own a single inch of peace. I started noticing things missing. Not stolen, just absorbed. My old coffee mug replaced by Mom's floral one. My framed college photo swapped out for Rebecca's art print. Even the thermostat password had been changed. When I asked, Matthew grinned. Yeah, Mom didn't like the setting. Said it's too cold. I fixed it. Fixed it. That word again? Like I was broken for wanting boundaries. I tried to bring up the topic over dinner one evening. The table was crowded with food I'd paid for but didn't cook. Margaret sat at the head slicing roast chicken, her bracelets clinking with every movement. I've been thinking. I began, keeping my tone calm. Maybe we should set a few clear boundaries, budget, chores. Who pays for what? She didn't even look up. Boundaries. She repeated softly as if I'd cursed. William, we're family, not business partners. Charles chuckled. You sound like a landlord. Rebecca rolled her eyes. Are you seriously keeping score now? Matthew stuffed a fork full of potatoes into his mouth. Bro, you're tense. You should hit the gym with me. Work that out. Their laughter filled the room, while I sat there gripping my napkin. Later that night, I found a sticky note on the fridge in Rebecca's cursive. William, please don't use the oat milk. It's mine. We talked about boundaries. I laughed, but it didn't sound like humor. Days turned into weeks. Charles borrowed my car to run errands and left it with an empty tank. Matthew used my Amazon account for gym equipment, a $300 charge labeled Home Improvement. Rebecca subscribed to an expensive digital art course by accident. Every time I confronted them, I was the problem. Stop being dramatic. You're not struggling. Relax. We'll pay you back. They never did. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the rewriting of reality. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., my natural routine, and find Margaret already in my kitchen cooking like she owned it. I made pancakes, she'd say cheerfully. Be grateful you wake up to breakfast. Except it wasn't breakfast. It was control. The stove was always on, the sink always full. She filled every corner of the house until I didn't fit anymore. By autumn, resentment had turned into background noise. I avoided home as much as possible, long walks, coffee shops, silent dinners at diners. But the more I distanced myself, the bolder they became. One day I opened my mail to find a notice for unpaid property taxes over $9,000. My name, my responsibility. I stormed into the kitchen. Did anyone pay the property tax last quarter, I asked. Charles didn't look up from his crossword. You handle that, don't you? Always have. Dad, I told you we needed to split it this year. He shrugged. We'll pay you back when things pick up. When exactly, I asked. Margaret turned from the stove, wooden spoon in hand, like a weapon. Stop interrogating your father. I'm not interrogating him. I'm asking a question. Your tone says otherwise, she snapped. And watch how you speak in my kitchen. I almost laughed. Her kitchen. The irony stung. That night, I sat at my desk, or rather at Rebecca's desk now, and pulled up my online banking. Every statement told the same story. I was slowly being erased by people who called it love. I started making a spreadsheet, columns for dates, expenses, names. At first, I told myself it was for organization. Then I realized I was building evidence, a record of everything they'd taken and called sharing. The totals climbed past $20,000 before I stopped counting. Still, I hesitated. Love-guilt habit, they tangled together like roots I couldn't cut. I convinced myself to wait until Christmas. Maybe the season would soften them. Maybe they'd remember I wasn't just a bank account with shoes. Then came the calendar. Margaret left it on the fridge, decorated with glitter pen. Paris, December 21st to January 4th. Below her perfect handwriting, confirm hotel, check travel insurance. Ask William for airport ride, not ask William if he's coming. Something inside me froze. I tried one last time the Sunday before Thanksgiving. We sat at the table, candles burning, turkey reheating in the oven. We need to talk, I said quietly, about you moving out, about money. Rebecca sighed again. Matthew snorted. Man, this obsession is unhealthy. Charles shook his head. It's Thanksgiving, not the time. Margaret smiled, patient but poisonous. You should be grateful we're all together. Some people would kill for family dinners like this. I stared at her. You mean dinners I pay for? Her smile faltered. Watch your tone. I'm serious, I said. I'm drowning. You're ungrateful, she said softly. We make this house alive. Without us, it would just be walls. The room went silent except for the oven's ticking. She was wrong. It wasn't alive. It was suffocating. That night, I dreamed of the house empty, just the hum of the refrigerator and snow falling outside. When I woke up, my chest ached, but my lungs felt open for the first time in years. I didn't know it then, but that dream was the first rehearsal for what I was about to do. December came colder than usual, the kind of gray Seattle winter that seeps into your bones. The house was dressed in lights and garlands, but it felt more like a stage set for a lie. Margaret had already started packing weeks before anyone else. I'd catch her humming Christmas songs while folding scarves into neat piles, murmuring about hotel check-ins and travel insurance, pretending she hadn't already bought tickets. Every night, the same loop laughter from the living room TV, blaring takeout boxes piling on the counter I scrubbed clean every morning. I could smell their perfume, their cologne, their entitlement in every corner. It clung to the walls like smoke. On December 10th, I opened the fridge and saw the pink sticky note again. William, don't touch the oat milk. It's mine. I stared at it for so long, the fridge began to beep. That single note, that absurd declaration of ownership inside a house I paid for, broke something in me. I pulled out my laptop that night. The cursor blinked at the top of a blank spreadsheet. One by one, I entered everything I could remember. Utilities, insurance, groceries, repairs, gas, car damage, streaming subscriptions, the copper pots, the Paris flights, every just this once. By the time I reached the bottom of the list, my total passed $42,000. The number didn't hurt. It clarified. A week later, I overheard Margaret on the phone again. Her voice was all sugar. "Yes, Helen, we're flying out the 21st. It'll be good for the kids. William's staying behind. You know how he hates long flights." There was a pause, and then I heard Helen's voice faintly through the line. "He doesn't hate them, Margaret. You just never asked." Silence. Then Mom's brittle laugh. "Oh, don't be dramatic." When I walked into the kitchen, she smiled as if she hadn't just erased me. That night, something inside me whispered soon. I began to prepare quietly. I opened new accounts, changed passwords, moved my direct deposits. I called my bank and asked how to remove authorized users. The woman on the phone said, "You'll need to sign forms in person." "I'll be there tomorrow," I told her. The next day, I stopped by Helen's house with a folder of papers. Her living room smelled like cinnamon and truth. She read every document, nodding. "So you're ready to cut them off?" "I'm ready to breathe," I said. She signed as witness, without hesitation. "You're doing the right thing, Will. Sometimes love looks like distance." By December 20th, the house was a parade of suitcases and chaos. Rebecca was packing outfits for her content shoots in Paris. Matthew flexed in the hallway mirror, testing jackets. Charles barked orders about taxis and luggage weight. Margaret hovered, orchestrating every detail, like the conductor of an orchestra that didn't know it was playing its final song. I didn't speak, I just watched. Every laugh, every order, every careless "you'll handle it right" added another layer to my calm. At midnight on the 21st, I sat on the couch and waited. The garage door rattled. Luggage wheels clicked against the tile. Margaret's voice floated down the hallway. "Don't forget to turn off the lights, William, and salt the driveway." I whispered back, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." At 4:15 a.m., the door shut. Their car rolled out of the driveway, tail lights glowing red through the snow. I stood at the window until the sound faded. The house exhaled a long, tired sigh. I turned around, looked at the half-empty wine glasses on the counter, the coats draped on chairs, the smell of their perfume lingering like ghosts. And then, I did what I'd been avoiding for 2 years. I opened my laptop and searched licensed moving companies, Seattle Full Pack and Store. The first one to answer was a woman with a soft voice. "When do you need us?" "The 28th, I said. "That's 3 days after Christmas." "Big move." "Yes," I replied. "For them, not for me." I hung up, then started a list. Remove family access from cards. Freeze household account. Change Wi-Fi password. Replace door lock code. Print records. Write cover letter. This is not punishment. This is a boundary. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Christmas morning came silent. The air felt thinner, like the walls had finally stopped listening. I made coffee for one and opened the blinds. Snow fell steady and soft outside. The world didn't care about family vacations or guilt or manipulation. It just kept moving. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Dad. "Don't be dramatic. Flights were tight. You'll be fine." Another from Mom. "William, we discussed this. Rebecca had extra miles. We'll FaceTime from the Eiffel Tower. Be grateful. It's Christmas." I stared at the screen until my reflection appeared in the glass. Calm, empty, done. I texted back just 2 words. "Merry Christmas." No one replied. I walked to the living room, turned off the blinking tree lights, and sat on the couch. The house hummed faintly, the sound of appliances, the heater, and finally my own heartbeat syncing with the silence. It was the first Christmas morning I didn't feel guilty, the first time I didn't wonder what was wrong with me, because for the first time I understood they hadn't forgotten me. They had just never planned to include me. And 3 days from now, they would learn what it felt like to be left behind. The morning of December 29th arrived cold and bright, the kind of winter light that burns white through the windows. I'd been awake since dawn, waiting. The movers had come and gone the day before, efficient and quiet. Now every corner of my house felt clean, echoing, and finally mine again. The smell of paint lingered faintly. I'd hired a cleaner too, just to erase every trace of them. On the kitchen island, 4 neat stacks of papers waited beside a steaming pot of coffee. I'd measured everything: expenses, receipts, legal documents. Each page had weight, my name, my signature, my proof. At exactly 10:07 a.m., tires screeched outside. Car doors slammed. Voices rose. The air changed. "Why isn't my key working?" Margaret's voice, high and furious. William Charles shouted, pounding on the door. "Open this damn thing!" Rebecca's phone camera was already recording. I could hear the fake gasp in her tone. "Oh my God, guys, look at this. He locked us out." Matthew kicked the door once, hard enough to rattle it. I took a breath, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened the door. They stood there, still wearing their Paris clothes, expensive scarves, matching coats, duty-free bags hanging from their arms. Behind them, the car engine idled, puffing clouds of exhaust into the cold. Margaret pushed past me. First eyes scanning the stripped walls. "Where is everything? Where's our stuff?" "In storage," I said. "Here's the address. First month's paid." Her jaw slackened. "You're joking." "No," I said. "I'm done joking." Charles stepped inside, next, red-faced scarf still around his neck. "You had no right." "I had every right," I interrupted. "It's my house, my name, my money." Rebecca swung her phone toward me again. "Say that louder for my followers. The internet's going to love this psycho meltdown." "Put it down," I said evenly. She smirked. "Make me." I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just turned the screen of my phone toward her, the screenshot of every unauthorized purchase, every flight, every studio deposit. Her smirk faltered. Matthew stepped forward, puffed chest fists tight. "All this because we didn't invite you to Paris." "Seriously?" "No," I said. "All this because you treated me like an ATM that cooks dinner." Charles snatched one of the papers off the island, the formal notice. His eyes skimmed the title, his voice dripping disbelief. "Termination of license to occupy. You're evicting your family. I'm ending an arrangement that was never fair," I said. "This is illegal," he barked. "No, it isn't. Helen witnessed and notarized it. You can call her if you like." Margaret blinked, startled. "Helen?" "Yes," I said. "She's expecting you." She offered her guest room for a week. For the first time, Margaret looked uncertain. Then her face hardened. "You're ungrateful. We made this house feel alive. You'd be miserable without us." I looked her dead in the eye. "I was miserable because of you." Silence. Then Rebecca scoffed. "You're unbelievable." "After all we've done, all you've done is spend my money," I said. "And call it love." Charles slammed his palm on the counter, making the coffee slosh. "We raised you, William. Don't you dare talk to your mother that way." "You raised me to serve," I said quietly. "You taught me that saying no means betrayal. I believed you for 34 years. Not anymore." Margaret's lips trembled. "We were going to pay you back." I slid a sheet across the counter, highlighted totals, dates, and the words "no repayment received." When I asked, she didn't answer. Matthew started pacing. "So what now? We're supposed to just leave." "Yes," I said. "You have until Friday to pick up your boxes. After that, I'll change the locks again." He let out a low, humorless laugh. "You think you're the hero in this? You're going to regret this when you're all alone." "Maybe," I said, "but at least the silence will be honest." Margaret's voice broke. "I don't even recognize you. That's because I finally stopped performing the version of me you liked," I said. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then muttered, "Our Prime account's gone." "Yes," I said. "And the Amex and the joint checking." She glared. "Petty much boundaries aren't petty," I replied. Charles tried one more time, his voice low, almost pleading. "You'll regret cutting us off. You'll see." "Maybe," I said again. "But I'd rather regret freedom than live in debt disguised as family." For a long moment, no one moved. The air between us hummed like static. Then Margaret's shoulders sagged. She whispered, "We'll see you at New Year's, right? We always do fondue." "I have plans," I said. "With who?" Charles asked sharply. "You don't have friends?" "I do," I said. "I just didn't have time for them while I was busy being your safety net." No one had an answer. Finally, Margaret picked up her purse, her chin trembling. "You'll miss us," she said, voice small. I nodded once. Maybe, but not enough to let you move back in. She turned and walked out first. Charles followed, muttering curses. Rebecca stormed off, slamming the car door so hard the windows rattled. Matthew lingered at the threshold, anger flickering into something like fear. "You really mean this?" he asked. "Yes." He nodded once, jaw tight. "Guess I'll see you around, bro." "Take care of yourself," I said. When the door shut, I stood there listening to the engine fade down the street. The house fell utterly still. I exhaled. It sounded like release. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I poured myself a cup of coffee, traced the sunlight crawling across the counter, and whispered the words I'd written on every page of those documents. This is not punishment. This is a boundary. They left like a storm that finally realized it couldn't win against the wind. The slam of the car doors echoed once, then faded into the distance. For a moment, I stood there in the doorway, the cold air curling around my ankles like freedom. The house didn't feel empty. It felt weightless, like someone had peeled the noise off the walls. I made coffee just one cup. The sound of the kettle was the only heartbeat left. No one shouted from another room. No one asked for favors. The quiet was mine now. My phone buzzed. "Helen, they made it," she said. "They're at my place already arguing about who gets the couch." I smiled. "So, business as usual." "Pretty much," she replied. "You did what you had to, William. It's about time someone taught your mother what no sounds like." "Thanks," I said softly. "And thank you for helping me make it stick." "Anytime," she said. "Now go live like a person, not a rescue fund." After we hung up, I looked around the kitchen. For the first time, I saw the spaces as mine. The walls weren't witnesses anymore. They were clean slates. I opened my laptop, hesitated for a second, and drafted an email to Daniel Morris. Subject: reconnecting. Body: you once said you needed someone to handle logistics again. If that offer's still open, I'm ready, this time on my terms. I hovered over the send button. My finger didn't shake. I'd spent years thinking strength meant carrying people. Now I knew it meant letting go. Still, a quiet satisfaction stirred inside me. Not anger, but something colder, sharper. I'd kept records, dates, totals, proof. They could twist stories all they wanted, but the truth was on paper with signatures. They thought I'd thrown them out in bitterness. They didn't realize I'd handed them a mirror. And soon enough, they'd have to look into it. Not out of revenge, out of reality. Because sometimes the cleanest kind of justice is silence that no longer answers the phone. If you've ever been the one who holds everything together while everyone else takes you for granted, hear me. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's survival. I used to believe love meant sacrifice. But love without respect is just control dressed up as family.